Well, after having done another training course at Cosford, I went on to this 221 squadron, and these were Wellington aircraft, which were completely different to a Spitfire. They were geodetic construction, and they were fabric covered. And went over to there to Bircham Newton, and the squadron was just being formed, so everybody was new on that squadron. The CO was a signal specialist, and we were the first RAF squadron fitted with airborne radar. And so we were on building up the squadron from the ground crew and the aircrew point of view, because they had 5 airmen per. There was a pilot, a second pilot, navigator, armourer, or air gunner rather, wireless operator. So each aircraft had a complement of 5 or 6 men flying, and there was a big team of ground crew again. And there, let me just think, let's see. Yeah, after Bircham Newton, when we were then, while we were at Bircham Newton, our patrols were over East Anglia and on the North Sea coastal patrols, because 221 Squadron was a coastal command unit. After about June in 1941, we were moved to Northern Ireland, to Limavady, and from there, of course, they were busy on Atlantic patrols. And while there, the squadron was again moved in August up to Iceland. And that was a real shaky do for the men, different contrasts and everything. And in Iceland at that time, to the airfield, I was never there because I was on maintenance, which was any major repairs to aircraft. But the ordinary, I say not ordinary, but the basic airframe riggers and engine mechanics, that they were, and the wireless mechanics and so forth, they would all be sent with the squadron aircraft. Any aircraft that wanted major repairs, they'd fly it back to Limavady, and we'd get working on it there. So I didn't suffer with that inconvenience, but there's quite some comical stories about the squadron in Iceland. Especially the lads, I mean, the billets were very, very poor, and I can put you in touch with a laddie if you want to hear about Iceland. He'd be happy to talk to you. Well, then the squadron came back from Iceland over December 1942 and went back to Bircham Newton, and there we were kitted out with tropical kit. And again, we didn't know where we were going. So you never did, of course. It was all secret. And so before I went to Ireland, of course, I couldn't take my car there. So I had to take my car up to Skegness, where I left it there. My parents had got a large garage, and so I got there all right. And of course, I don't think I got any embarkation leave, so I couldn't go over and see my girlfriend before I went out to the Middle East. Went to Liverpool on a troop ship, the Otranto, and set sail, I think it was January the 8th, 1942, out into the Atlantic. We've got no idea where we're going. And the officers and aircrew pilots or sergeants and above all had accommodation on the upper decks, and the ground crew were in the bowels of the ship in hammocks, which a hammock is very, very comfy, but the living conditions when you got one hammock bang against another one in the swells, and the food was not at all brilliant. Until those, I don't know how many days out we were out sailing, but the officers and NCOs all had bar facilities. Of course, the ground crew didn't, or the General Irks didn't. And a ground crew man was called an Irk, E-R-K, and that was our always referred to the Irks. And Jeff knows this. And so there was a word got round that they want somebody as a volunteer for to be a steward in the officers' mess. So of course I couldn't resist. I belted up because that ostensibly gave you better living conditions. In fact, it didn't, but at least you got out of the bowels of the ship during the day and at night and slept on the deck, open deck, which was far superior to in the bowels. And anyway, we went out there, and I forget how many days it was. Certainly, our first stop was Freetown, although we didn't go into port. We were anchored out there. And on the way there, our rudder system failed on the boat. So we were just left as sitting ducks. The convoy just proceeded, and we were there on our own. Unfortunately, the ship's engineers managed to get the thing rectified in 2 days, but we could have been sunk if Jerry had found us, obviously. And we eventually got down to Freetown, spent, I think, 24, 48 hours there, refurbishing food and whatever. Although we didn't go ashore because it was the white man's grave at that time of year, or that year, as long ago as 1942-ish. And we eventually got down to Durban. That was our first port of call, and it was fantastic, honestly. The South African people were lining up. I was a bit emotional there, I can't help it, but they were lining up to take us and give us a good day out. And people with their cars, limousines, you just walk off the ship, somebody, ladies and gentlemen, can we look after you? Yes, get 3 or 4 people in the car, and they take you out for the day, into the countryside. And the Peaches in January, no, by the time we got out there, it'd be February 1943, that's right. Yes. The Peaches were absolutely lovely. I'll never forget that in my life. And there's one cinema in Durban where you looked into the foyer and it was as though you were out in the open sky. It was absolutely magnificent, all stars and everything. In fact, my wife and I went, we got married after I came out of the Air Force, and we went there on holiday, and the first thing we did when we got to Durban was to find this cinema. It was still the same. I'm not a film buff at all. I don't go to the cinema, hardly ever been. I think once or twice since I've been married. But well, that was good.